This is your election headquarters. Good afternoon and welcome to Election Afternoon. Well, of course, we are live on television, we're on radio, we're on online, across all our social media platforms right here on your election headquarters. We know that by now the President of the Republic, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, has cast his ballot in Chebi together with his wife. We also know that the various presidential and parliamentary candidates have also voted, with Vice President and NPP presidential candidate Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia casting his ballot early this morning in his home region in Wale Wale. Former President John Dramani Mahama also voted in Bole. Before that, he visited the grave of his father, while his wife also cast hers in La Dade Kotopong. The Speaker of Parliament, Alban Bagbin, has also voted this afternoon in the Upper West region. A lot has happened today, and we are just about 3 hours more to go since poll opened at 7 a.m. We've been covering every angle of this crucial exercise. So far, the voting process, we are told, has been largely smooth. We've been hearing from Kodeo, the police, the EC, amongst others, with little to no incidents reported. We've also heard from both international and local observers who've been sharing their perspectives on the process so far. And as we continue through the election afternoon, we'll be monitoring the voting process, key battlegrounds, and what's at stake for Ghana's future. Well, expect a bit more analysis, expert analysis, live updates, and on-the-ground report as we keep you informed every step of the way. Well, from the Joy News studios, I am Emefa Apau, and joining the coverage also Kojo Yankson from the Studio 997, David Akwete and Eugene Osei also on standby from Studio 995 all the way in Kumasi. Later, our team will also take you to the strong room where we get to connect and interact. And the NPP has mentioned that they will be holding press conferences along the way, and as we speak, it does appear that one of such press conferences ready to take off. Before I go to Kojo Yankson, maybe I should just take you to the NPP headquarters. It does look like they are almost ready. I see Miracles Abuaje taking the podium, and as and when he's ready, I'll take you live there. But Kojo Yankson is on standby, and we'll join him shortly at Studio 997 here across the street. But earlier, there were some incidents that have been recorded that my colleague has been giving you updates on. I'll take you to Obuasi at this point. We're told an officer for Bono East constituency named Hakiki has been allegedly assaulted by military in 3 pickups for challenging their presence at a polling station at Akoporoso in the area in Obuasi East. Well, you can see the visuals rolling as we speak. This is what we are told occurred. You can see that altercation between the military men and one who is supposed to be a returning officer or so at the Obuasi East constituency. Let's listen to what transpired. That's the situation in Akoporoso area in the Obuasi East constituency, and this, we are told, happened at a polling station, and you can see the 3 military men with that civilian and with shots fired in the air amongst others. This is an issue that we are definitely going to be all over for you here in your election headquarters to find out what exactly that situation is about, and hopefully we can get some update from the police on this. We are told he questioned the presence of the 3 military men, their presence at the polling station, when we've been told that they are not supposed to be at any polling station in this country during this particular voting unless it becomes necessary. It's a good time to take you to the NPP Media Center, where Miracles Abuaje is the Campaign Communications Director, currently addressing the media.
More than halfway through the process, and so far the turnout is very, very, very encouraging. And we're urging everybody that is yet to cast their vote to start moving towards your polling station and cast your vote. So far, the process has been extremely peaceful. It's been very smooth and fluid. And we commend the Electoral Commission and the security services for a very good work done so far. And clearly we cannot attest to the progress we are making in our electoral processes in this country. You can also realize that by virtue of the reduction of the sizes or the number of people who vote in a particular polling station, it drastically reduced the queues that we are usually accustomed with in previous elections. And that's something that we also commend the Electoral Commission for. We also see the swiftness with which the security services, the Ghana Police Service, is handling issues as they come up on a minute or per the hour. It is important for us to note that in spite of all of these things, we have experienced some delays in other polling stations, but I'm very sure the Electoral Commission would have a strategy in place to ensure that everybody in the queue gets to vote. And so we are encouraging our fellow citizens to move towards your polling station and get in the queue and exercise your rights. This comes but every 4 years, and you do not want to miss this. In spite of the smoothness of the process and the obvious acknowledgement by all of us that the process since morning has been very, very peaceful, we've had some few pockets of issues that we believe that we would have to highlight. We need to do these things in order to ensure that we grow as a country and to also get it to serve as a deterrent to other people who may want to engage in these things. So this morning, we had an incident in Kintampo South where an electoral officer deliberately, in giving the ballot papers out, was tearing off the face and the column that has Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia. And so obviously what it means is that when the voter receives the ballot paper and goes to the voting booth, there will be no Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia for the voter to even cast their vote. And this electoral officer actually issued out 15 of such ballot papers. Thankfully, due to the vigilance of our party agents and our party people in the polling station, we're able to identify this, and as we speak, the Ghana Police Service has caused the arrest of this electoral officer, and investigations are underway. And so I'm sure you can see these ballot papers on the screen. And so what you are seeing on the screen right now is ballot booklets of close to about 15 ballot papers that have been issued. And as you can see on the screen, these ballot papers that have been issued do not have the image of Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia because they all remained in the booklet. This is a very, very worrying situation. It's a very sad situation, and it's something that we need to condemn, and condemn without any reservation, and encourage our party people, our security people, and electoral officers in the polling stations to remain vigilant to ensure that such miscreants who are doing these things for the NDC do not have their way around this particular election. The gentleman involved in this is called Joseph Derry. And as we speak, in fact, the Electoral Commission has also issued a statement. I'm sure we'll pull up the statement as well. The Electoral Commission has also issued a statement and indicated that they are also going to ensure the necessary sanctions are issued. So please, let us all eschew from such unnecessary and evil actions that cause serious dents on our electoral processes. It is quite worrying that even in 2024, we still have the NDC trying to pursue such crude ways of manipulating our elections. And the NPP is calling for Joseph Derry's prosecution, immediate prosecution, because whatever he's done clearly was a deliberate attempt to disenfranchise the Ghanaian people and the Ghanaian voter and to deny them their fundamental human rights to vote. And this is to let every single individual that has also been engaged in one way or the other by the NDC to perpetrate such actions to note that we are going to find you out. We have a robust system in place in every polling station, and no matter the machinations and mechanisms you attempt to do with the NDC, we are going to find you out. And if we find you out, unfortunately for you, just as Mr. Joseph Derry, I'm sure we'll pull out his picture on the screens. Just as Mr. Joseph Derry is on the screens right now, and he's going to suffer the consequences alone. If the NDC manages to lure you like they have done with Joseph Derry, you are going to be alone, and the NDC is not going to be there with you. And so we must all be cautious as we go about our duties today. In another worrying situation, Mr. Charles Foku, the son of the NDC youth organizer for the Akewteyman constituency. His name is Charles Foku. He is the son of the NDC youth organizer for the Akewteyman constituency. He had in his possession 76 printed ballot papers, already printed in favor of the former president, Mahama, and all he did was to try and stuff the ballot box with these illegal ballot papers. But like I keep saying, we have a very robust system in place in every polling station, and again, Mr. Charles Foku was caught and arrested, and as we speak, he is in the custody of police. We have a video of the incidents. It's been widely reported by the media, but I think it's important that we make the point again that why would, and please play the video for me, why would organizer of the Akewteyman constituency, the NDC youth organizer, encourage and hand over to his own son, hand over ballot papers to him to go to the polling station to go and cast his vote and dumping these foreign materials into the ballot box? It tells you the mindset and the thinking that the NDC have in these elections. They know they have lost. They know there is no way the good people of this country are going to go into the box and vote for them. And so they are resorting to these illegalities and crude means to manipulate our elections. But that is going to be extremely difficult for them because the Electoral Commission is vigilant, the security services is vigilant, and our ever hard-working party people in each of the 40,000 polling stations are vigilant and are high alert. And so you can see the police causing the arrest of the son of the NDC youth organizer for the Akewteyman constituency. These examples, these critical examples, and it's important that I make the point that you'd realize the NPP is not churning out misinformation and disinformation. What we are doing is to highlight specific issues that have gone on, that have already been actioned by the police and the Electoral Commission, to ensure that we encourage every Ghanaian to also be on the lookout and be on the watch in preventing such things to happen. And these few examples clearly is I believe that the NDC is engaged in a deliberate attempt to disenfranchise the Ghanaian people after they have realized they have lost the elections. And of course, clearly, with the numerous arrests that is going on, it's clear that they are failing at their strategy and they are failing woefully. And so if you're an NDC agent, you're an NDC officer, you're an NDC friend that has been engaged by them to execute any other activity from this moment to the next few hours before the election ends, please be reminded that you are going to be arrested, you are going to be caught, and when you are arrested, you are going to be alone. And so you would advise yourself and ensure that you do not engage in whatever it is that they have actually tasked you to do. The EC officials have done tremendously well, except for the few accomplices of the NDC within the EC. But the good news is that even for those EC officials, you have the Electoral Commission swiftly taking action and dealing with them. And we commend the security services also for the good work they have done so far. Be rest assured, we have a very robust system in place that will not allow such manipulations to succeed. In that vein, we restate our call to the Ghana Police Service to give us the status of each of the single arrests they have made for each of these criminalities that the NDC have been doing since the last 3-4 days and today. We need to bring these things to the attention of the Ghanaian people, give us a status report, and we need to get any other person to note, to get to know what has happened to these criminals, so that when they are also thinking and planning to do same with the NDC, they will be cautious. To our very good Ghanaian people, be rest assured that we are going to increase the vigilance at the polling stations, and we call on all of you to join us in this endeavor. We believe that Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia is winning these elections and winning it in a very big way. And that is why we want these elections to be free and fair. It is our elections that we are winning, and we do not want the elections to be disrupted. We are committed to a peaceful process, we are committed to a transparent process, and we are calling on every Ghanaian out there to join us in this cause to ensure that your vote would count, and that at the end of the day, we will not be having an illegal president, but we'll be having a president that has been voted for by the Ghanaian people and by the people who qualify to do so.
That's Dennis Miracle Abuaji there addressing the media from the NPP's Communications Directorate, raising some concerns about certain incidents that have been recorded that the police have been talking about, the Electoral Commission have been addressing as well, including that electoral officer that's been giving out some 15 ballot papers to voters without the picture or the part of Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia. 15 of them, that electoral officer has since been arrested, and the police says they are delving deeper into that particular matter. Investigations underway on it. We've been hearing the Electoral Commission also speak to that particular matter, and also other issues that they've been addressing so far when it comes to polls. We're about 2 hours and some 30 minutes to go for the close of polls, and note that anyone who is in the queue as at 5 p.m. will be allowed to vote, so no panicking at all. It's a good time for you to still go out there. And my colleague in Studio 997, Kojo Yang Singh, is on standby. Kojo, are we set to go? How has the day been so far?
MFA, we're good to go. And can you believe it? After, God, what, 4 years of anticipation, we're here. It's election 2024, and already the drama is unfolding across the country. Of course, there's no other place to catch it all but here on your election headquarters.
Now you have a special guest with you in the studios. Yes, and don't give. Oh, okay, they've given it away. I was hoping
have they?
Yes, they have. I was hoping you're going to keep it a bit under wraps for us. But please, now that they've given it away, let's hear him a little and his expectations and initial observation of the process so far.
Your wish is my command. And, well, they've given it all away, my little bit of power. I'm so excited that today, joining us for the analysis and all the in-depth discussions about what's unfolding is Imani's Vice President, Bright Simmons.
Thank you for having me.
It's such a pleasure. Thank you so much for making the time.
It's a pleasure.
If it's going to take every 4 years to bring you out of your hole, then we're grateful for the election. And I mean, just quickly before we go back to MFA, I mean, how do you think things have unfolded so far from your observations?
Yeah, it's funny because yesterday, a few hours ago, I was in Bellagio. So it's been a long journey to get here.
Wow.
I came specially for this. So
thank you.
And when I came in, the first thing we did, as we do every election, is to go around and see how things are going. It's not official monitoring, but still, you know, it's kind of CSO monitoring. So we've done the morning rounds, we've done the afternoon rounds before I showed up. 3 key observations. One, very peaceful, very tranquil. Everywhere we went, and I'm not by any chance saying that that's a representative sample, but it's a number of polling stations in 4 cities. And it's looking like it's been a very peaceful election. The usual challenges with malfunctioning equipment and the rest of it doesn't seem out of place. It seems to follow the usual trend. And secondly, and this is just our raw observation, it appears as if turnout is a bit low. In the place that we went, especially early in the morning where you usually expect a lot of people want to come and vote and then go and do the other things in the day, it was still very, very, very light traffic. So that is the second observation. The third,
that's interesting. That would perhaps contradict what we've heard from the NPP's presser that just ended. We heard Miracle Abuaji actually suggesting that turnout has been high.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, they have superior infrastructure than we do because they have agents at the stations who collect data and sense it. So if he's saying that based on these data feeds, then we have to give him the benefit of the doubt. But from our observation so far, we are looking at a potential turnout of between 64 to 70%, which is not...
Right, that would be low.
That would be low, yeah.
Right,
Especially given the stakes.
And the third thing?
And the third thing that we've observed is that, you know, the usual accusations and counter-accusations have been compounded by artificial intelligence, fake news. You know, social media has become... This is probably the most social media intensive elections in our history. And it's become quite apparent that, you know, this is presenting a new level of concern. Whether or not that is going to be problematic, we'll only know when the actual tallying begins, when the constituency coalitions, the attempts to transmit to the regional coalition center. It's that period that we expect that the fake news situation could exacerbate potential security concerns.
This is what will characterize the 2024 election, undoubtedly, you know, the role of technology, good and bad. MFR, listen, you've got the bird's eye view of what's happening at the moment. Why don't you give us a quick whip around before Bright and I settle in to the analysis?
And I have my own special guest also in the studio, Kojo. It's a fair share this afternoon, whilst we also go around town and all the constituencies. We've got you covered right here on your election headquarters. And Dr. Ishmael Norman is with us in the studios right here as well. Dr. Norman, you're welcome. I bet we didn't allow you to have enough sleep. You were with us last night, and we're here again this afternoon. But I'm sure that in all this, you've had some time to check on what exactly has been happening in terms of our report, amongst others. What's your own observation so far of the process?
I expected the elections to be peaceful.
Okay.
And so far, I think with a few skirmishes here and there, things are not so bad, particularly given the stakes that is really at stake. So I think Ghana is doing well. EC is doing well. Ghana Police is doing well. And media coverage is just fantastic.
Where were you getting that kind of hope from? It does appear that from yesterday you were so sure that this particular election will be very peaceful, even though the stakes are pretty high. What gave you that particular hope?
My hope actually came from the fact that Ghanaians are expecting change.
Okay.
And when people are expecting change, they make a lot of sacrifices. And so because of that, I expected Ghanaians to comport themselves and actually go and vote, just so that they can have the change they want.
There have been a few incidents that we'll delve into, but largely, though, we've heard the bit about where an electoral officer has been issuing some ballot papers without the picture of the vice president or the NPP presidential candidates, 15 papers. You've been hearing the NPP address that at that particular press conference. I'm sure that's an issue that you would want to touch on.
Sure. I think we should wait to see how it happened.
Okay.
Because he didn't print the ballot papers.
I'm told he was just tearing it from the book.
They were just tearing
exactly,
it from the book.
and then was tearing without the photo or the part of Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia.
Exactly. How he managed to do that when there are other EC officials around, the full investigation has to be conducted before we can really decisively say what he has done, prima facie, is wrong, right? But we need to understand why it happened.
Okay. Well, but there are those who say that nothing much has happened as we speak, but we better knock on wood. This is glass, but I'll knock on it. That is mostly when we are nearing the end of polls, when it's getting a bit dark, during counting, amongst others. That's when we start recording the skirmishes and the incidents that we are not expecting to happen. You're so sure that this time around, also because of the systems put in place, we are not going to experience any such incidents?
I am really, really sure. The Electoral Commission wants to do a fantastic job. So far, things are really going well. I went to vote. It took me 5 minutes to cast my vote. So, and the lines were not...
I bet you were voting in a bougie area. Oh, it's not a bushy area. Yes, but a smile on your face tells me it's definitely a bushy area. Reason why he just spent 5 minutes. But stay with me, Dr. Norman, and of course, Kojo Yankson, also with Bright Simmons in the Studio 997 studios. We'll get there shortly. But let me take you to the University of Ghana campus. We're told there's some situation there at the Union Hall polling station over allegations of vote padding. And now voters, we are told, are demanding immediate withdrawal of the military from campus, accusing them of bias. James Kwesi Aveji joins us from, that's the Ayawaso West Wogon constituency, joins us with all the details. James, walk us through what exactly happened.
Well, MFR, so just a few minutes ago, there have been some chaos here, but that have been calm now. But the reasons we got from those who have been involved is that there's been some allegations of vote padding and vote buying at the Union Hall, SRC Union Hall of the University of Ghana here on campus. Now, we came to meet the chaos with a few of the students pushing each other here and there and heckling each other. From our initial interaction with them, they indicate that a team of one of the candidates is currently, even as we speak, interacting with some students in the halls, which they are alleging are engaged in some vote buying. The military were here to sort of calm the situation, for which reason they are calling for their withdrawal, because one side of the group feels that the military has not been fair to them in dealing with the situation. Let me get one of them to tell us exactly what the issue is. Come, let's speak. Let's talk. I mean, what really is the issue?
So the military, according to them, were being called by the police command over here, and they were stationed. The military was being stationed at Kotebebi. Drove all the way over here to kind of diffuse tension over here between two people. Apparently, according to the fact that I've received so far, was that an NPP person assaulted an NDC member over here, and they called that. To me, it doesn't have to be the military who's supposed to diffuse tension of that matter, of that sort over here. It's supposed to be the police themselves who are supposed to diffuse that matter. So for them to call the military presence over here to intimidate voters, intimidate citizens, is unwarranted for. It is actually unwarranted for. And then, so I'm calling on the commander of chief to really do something about what is going on. You don't do this, and upon the military arriving over here, they intimidated a citizen over here.
But I mean, they came here and interacted with them. I don't see them lay their hand or
What do you call interaction over here?
But that actually ended up calming the situation.
Let me try to get a classical explanation for what interaction is. Classical interpretation of what someone interpreting to you is me coming to you, trying to ask you what has been and trying to offer a solution thereof so that we diffuse the issue. They didn't come here to have any interaction with anybody. They came here in a Rambo style, stood over here with their guns, walking up to people, slapping people. The military, I learned they slap one person over here.
The military slapped someone, because I didn't
see that. That's what I said. What I saw was the military walking up to someone who was taking a video, and then they asked the person to delete the video, intimidating, taking the person's phone. That's what I saw. As a matter of fact, of they slapping someone, I cannot confirm that.
That was a rumor you heard.
That's what I heard when I got over here. That's what happened. And it's really that bad. It's really that bad. That election of that magnitude, you invite the military who has no jurisdiction whatsoever over here to do what they are supposed to do.
Okay. And so you are demanding that the military leave campus?
They should. I mean, why would you even ask me this question? Why you, a journalist, will ask me?
I'm asking because. Okay. So let me explain.
I'm demanding that they leave over here. It doesn't wash.
Good.
What are you trying to tell me?
Let me explain my position to you. So we know that the leader of the National Election Task Force, which is the IGP, indicated that the military are not going to be the first call in situations of chaos. until the police request that they come in to calm situations. Just give me a second. And then later we heard from the armed forces that they've done some deployment to certain parts of the country which will be on standby for invitation. Do you know whether the police security on campus extended invitation to them or not?
Let me say this explicitly. According to the military folks who came over here, they said it that they were called by the police command. Whoever is the police command over this very particular jurisdiction was the one who called them. They were stationed at Akewteyman, and they have to drive all the way, move all the way to campus to diffuse whatever tension that they're of over here.
And so, if the police in charge invites them, are they not at liberty? They assess situation and know that the military is supposed to take charge. Is that not in the purview of the police to do?
Let's not do this to yourself, yeah. Per their own guidelines that they gave. Until a matter has reached some certain form of crescendo, where they're supposed to call the military to come in over here. And per whatever thing that they put out there per their guidelines, I don't see people fighting or using guns or knives over here.
You don't feel what happened here needed the intention of...
Oh, have you seen that? Have you seen people fighting over
I am not a security person.
Come on, let's not do this.
Yes. And that's why the IGP tells us that it is
people cannot tell the truth. That's why Akewteyman has run our country down. That's why they do all sort of impunity.
But you see, it is not in the purview of we citizens to determine whether military should come or not, but the police. And you have indicated, and you have. I'm not saying so. Can we have a conversation? So relax. Let's have a conversation. So relax. Let's have a conversation. So you have agreed that it is in the purview of the police. Can we have a conversation? You agree that it is in the purview of whichever police commander here to analyze the situation and invite the military if he deems so. And you say that.
Put over the police. Per the guidelines being put over there for all of us to read, it wasn't a necessary step for whoever is the police commander over here to call upon the military to come over here. It was something that was necessary, something that was needed. It's something that the police could have done. So if the police is calling the military at these very particular issues, I mean, my first question that I'm asking is that, I mean, what's the use over here then? What's the IGP?
So you want them out of campus?
You don't want them out of campus? Are the military supposed to be part of our electoral process? I'm asking you, as a journalist, are they supposed to be part of our electoral process?
I've just expounded the guideline for which they can be involved, which you say you have.
And I'm telling you, I didn't say that. I told you explicitly that per the guidelines being issued,
you don't think that they are supposed to be here.
Per the guidelines that they issued out by the chairman of the election task force.
I wish this conversation could proceed. So as far as you are concerned, they are supposed to be.
They are not supposed to be here.
Okay. Question answered. Thank you so much. And so that's one of those who have been involved in all of this, and he thinks that the military is not supposed to be here. I saw you also in the middle of all of this. The allegation of vote buying, where is it coming from?
Okay, so first of all, let me put on record that is alleged. It's an alleged allegation that Lydia, the Honorable Member of Parliament of this particular constituency, is sharing money. And her location is right at this particular building, the Union building. So when we got this information, what we did was we wanted to have an evidence to back our claims. So we asked our guy to take a video of she actually giving out monies or whatever it is.
The candidate herself here?
No, her people. Okay. Yes. So as soon as they saw our guy taking the video, then they bounced on him. They pounced on him and they started slapping him. And you know the absurdity of
your own call.
And that's my colleague James Aveji there interacting with some voters at the Ayawaso West Wogon constituencies. This is the University of Ghana campus where they talk about some military incident, and that's another issue that we will be looking into and, of course, get some answers. We are the Police Media Center. As and when we're able to get any answers on that, we'll bring that to you. But let me take you to the northern region now. There's a shooting incident, we are told, at Nyankpala in the Tolon constituency. We're told that one person has been shot dead and one injured and 4 arrested in relation to that particular shooting incident. My colleague Martina Bugri is all over it for us, joins us on the line. It's rather a police statement that we are getting on this. The police, we're told, has arrested 4 persons in connection with that shooting incident at Nyankpala in the northern region, and the police is giving updates on this. So 1 dead, we're told, and 1 injured and 4 arrested in relation to that particular incident. So that's the situation in Nyankpala, and my colleague Martina Bugri will also be checking on this for us. But that's the latest update we are getting from the police on this. And of course, we've also in the last minute been hearing from the Electoral Commission also on this ballot tearing issue that the NPP has also been addressing. The EC itself gave update on that particular incident a while ago. The police also gave some updates on it in terms of the arrest. But the EC has just issued another statement giving some more clarity on this particular issue, together with photos of that ballot booklet and the 15 of them that were torn without the picture of Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, which many have raised concerns about. In a bit, I'll just put that on the screens for you to see what's left of that particular booklet after the 15 papers were torn out. The EC is unable to tell what exactly will happen in besides the arrest of this electoral officer. These 15 persons that voted and left, is there a way that you're going to make them vote again? What exactly is going to happen? We are unsure. We asked that question at the EC press conference. Israel I put that question to the EC, but where there was no clarity on what exactly will happen. But they mentioned that the police had made initial arrests. And so this is the incident. That's the Bayiri polling station in Bono East region. They talk about they've received a report from the Bono East Regional Directorate confirming that a ballot issued, or the ballot issuer at the temporary booth Bayiri polling station in the Kintampo South District tore off the head of the presidential candidate of the New Patriotic Party while issuing 15 ballot papers to voters. The ballot issuer, Joseph Derry, has since been arrested by the police. The commission will cooperate fully with the police to get to the bottom of the matter. The commission warns all election officials who violate their processes and electoral laws will be prosecuted. The commission further warns that it will not shield any election officials who misconduct themselves during the election. So if you go down this particular statement, you see the booklet that the EC attaches to the statement signed by Mr. Samuel Tete, the deputy chairman of the Electoral Commission in charge of operations. So if you will just scroll down a bit more, then we can get pictures of that booklet, or the booklet that's left in terms of that incident that occurred. And my producers will put that up shortly on the screens for us to see that booklet that has been torn without the pictures of Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia. So, Dr. Norman, we were referring to that particular incident a while ago, and you were hoping that some more details, some more fine details will be provided shortly. I'm sure that the pictures will be put on, but I've given you a copy also of it. What do you make of it now that you've seen further and better particulars, as they say?
Mm-hmm. I think the EC official should be punished severely, including prison sentence. Seriously, because he wants to be a hero. I don't think the party officials, NDC officials, will tell him to do that. Even if you don't like Dr. Bawumia, you don't have to destroy government property. That ballot paper belongs to all of us. So I think it is a serious offense, and I know that the EC and the police will ensure that this individual is punished for his...
But looking at the manner in which these papers were torn, really, could it also not be that there were genuine mistakes, or you could tell that it's actually deliberately torn? Because you could see that portions of it is torn and then it's left with the head and then part of the flag. But where the thumb printing is supposed to be done is, you know, intact. It's torn properly, but all the way to half of the pictures. That's what it is. Do you get a sense that it's actually deliberate?
This is a very deliberate act.
Okay.
Because I've seen the booklets and they are very easy to tear.
Okay.
So he decided to deface Dr. Bawumia's face because maybe he doesn't like him, he doesn't want him to win in case he's destined to win. So this is a deliberate act and it should be punished.
But what do you say about the swift response in terms of from the police, also from the Electoral Commission, but generally, I'm sure we'll come to the general flow of information from the police service. They mentioned that they were going to do this. Also from the Electoral Commission, a number of press conferences have been held already today. And the flow of information, that must definitely satisfy you.
I commend the EC, Madam J. Mensah, for this innovation. Basically meeting the press and advising the citizens as to what is happening, updating us. In terms of the police work, it's also been fantastic. I have found no fault with the way the police is going about, with the exception of accepting pork and fried yams at Ayawaso West Wagon. That was a low point at the beginning, but so far, I think it's been fantastic.
Well, you just heard about that incident also on campus, Ayawaso West Wagon. It does appear that a lot is happening in that constituency, Legon campus. The issue about the military and how far away they can stay away from a polling station and at what point their intervention is actually needed, amongst others, because in Obuasi we saw some 3 military officials in an altercation with a civilian who is supposed to be working at that polling station, questioned their presence at the polling station, and it turned into a fight with warning shots being fired, amongst others. But I'm told that the police is about to just address the media on these arrests, so we'll hold the thoughts on it and then we'll get some more details. I'll take you to the Police Media Center for updates.
And Alhaji Bashiru Mohammed have been arrested and they are currently in custody assisting police investigation. We are still monitoring the issue on the ground and investigations have since commenced, and as and when we have further details, we will update you in due course. Thank you very much. Nyankpala crew northern region etifi mantem ewie aposifo ache nipa ennan se omu eka hu bi na saa ewudi sem yi esi Nyankpala crew mu ho na obi ekobotu ema nipa baako ahwere ne nkwa na baako so epra na mraye kasei yede ufo no akope baby akra no na nia wepra ne nso eji ayarehwe na nipa enan no yesusu se omoka ho na saa boni e wudi sami eba ye no posifo ensa kam na omoboayen amaya ye nhwehwemu no saa nipa nan no omudini Majid Isa, Fodi Isiage Kamara, Yakubu Smaila, Ene Alhaji Bashiru Mohammed. Information Fufrubia Ekahua, Yevema Ghana, Fonina Asonate, Yevestres Ubia Kanakoman, Yebra, Yugusua, Ye, Yedamas.
So I was telling you about the Nyankpala incident a while ago, and that's the address update from the police. They issued an earlier statement about this incident, a shooting incident in Nyankpala, 1 person dead. one other injured, and we are told that 4 persons have been arrested. And these are videos on the screen, quite sensitive videos on the screens as you see it, that shooting incident in Nyankpala that the police have just been addressing. So these are footages of what we have from that particular incident, that injured person being taken to the hospital for attention. We are told he's currently getting some treatment, and we're hoping he survives this. But unfortunately, 1 person is dead, but 4 persons have been arrested in connection with this incident. Well, unfortunate, we're just hoping that no life will be lost in this particular election, but unfortunately that's the incidents that we've just recorded. Well, my colleague Nana Boakye Dankwa-Yadom also joins us from Setre in the Ashanti region. He will join us shortly, but I think it's a good time for me to pick your thoughts on this incident that we are recording in Nyankpala. Dr. Norman, we're hoping that this will not be an incident we'll record.
Yes, it's very unfortunate, and the person who is dead. We can't bring him back. But please, tone down your anxiety, tone down your competitive spirit, because whoever is destined to win is going to win. You cannot control what the Ghanaians will decide. We all have to make a decision to select one out of the competitors. So killing someone is not going to make your candidate win. So please stop that. Let us do an election that reflects our personalities as Ghanaians. We are peaceful people. It's unfortunate. The police should deal with the perpetrators.
We're told they've been able to pick up 4 persons in connection with this incident. We're also talking about the issues about military incidents that we are recording. At this point, at least, the police was very clear that they would only bring in the military when it becomes absolutely necessary. There've been deployment, but far away or very safe distance from the polling stations. We're hearing about the incident at University of Ghana, Legon, and also the incident in Obuasi. At this point, what do you think should happen in terms of clear communication between personnel of the Ghana Armed Forces and the police service?
I believe Ghana Police is in a position to handle every eventuality in connection with this election. Even though I am an employee of the Ghana Armed Forces and Command College, I do not speak for them. I believe that any time you have military close to a polling venue, it's a faux pas. It's not democratic. What are they doing there? Are we under martial law? Is that a state of emergency? The army has no business with internal policing work and therefore should not be called in. I believe that some of them are very anxious, some of the soldiers, and they want to make a name for themselves. Well, this is not a venue for you to do that.
But some have said it's also the level of discipline that they bring to bear in some instances, because there are certain areas that when they see the presence of the military, everybody becomes steady, like we say it in our local parlance. You don't think that we need them at all in this particular process? At
military barracks, the military people are very disciplined. But outside, they are no more disciplined than we, the civilian, we, the idle civilians. So they should stop that talk about discipline. We don't need them to become our parents.
Interesting. So that's Dr. Norman's take on the military and, that form of discipline that they are hoping to instill in this process. But we're still bringing you updates across the country. Now it does appear that we have just about 2 hours more to go, less than 2 hours, I should say, for the close of polls at 5 p.m. And this is your election afternoon. And here on your election headquarters, I said earlier that my colleague, Kojo Yankson, of course, he's also seated with Bright Simmons. I think it's a good time for us to go to Kojo Yankson and also hear a bit more from Bright Simmons also on this process so far, amongst all the other developing issues that have come up. Kojo?
MFR, it's quite disturbing, those images of the believed to be killed member of the public. We'll keep an eye on that in Nyankpala. But I'm here with Bright Simmons, who undoubtedly has seen an election or two. And, you know, last election, one of the blights of it was this shooting incident, which to this day has not been resolved. The last thing we wanted was to see any kind of repetition of it. But here we are.
Yeah. And you know, perhaps not surprisingly, the same Akewteyman South area where some of these conflicts escalated to the level that we saw was also where we saw the West errors. You remember the famous arithmetic errors?
Indeed.
Yes. And so there were, when the final tallies were done, in terms of valid votes, the revised valid votes versus what the EC had initially declared, Akewteyman South had about 2,209 votes variance. What that means, therefore, is that the violence also often affects the legitimacy of the results themselves. It appears as if they are all interrelated. And so where you see a lot of tension, you see a lot of potential violence perpetuated by authorities, you also are likely to have concerns around the quality of the results. So it goes to the legitimacy of the polls. Certainly, everybody has made it very clear that when the military tells us they will avoid being used as first respondents, and they will only come in when there is clearly a failure of the police to maintain law and order, we expect to see that. I mean, there are layers, right? First, if there are incidents, the Electoral Commission is responsible. If the Electoral Commission cannot do it, the security agents that have been posted at the polling station are responsible for attempting to resolve it. When they cannot do it, then you have the police response units moving. And when the police response units are overwhelmed, then you have the military. So before we escalate to the point where the military is involved and there are shootings, there must be evidence that, you know, we've seen a breakdown in law and order. And in these circumstances, that is not apparent. On the face of the issues that we've currently been reviewing, it's not apparent that there was a breakdown in law and order. There's nothing that shows that the police was not in a position to intervene if that was necessary. So you have to wonder whether these are covert operations. I mean, what is leading to these quick results to the military to intervene in these matters? I don't think it's sound.
Should we be hearing some explanation from the police, who, as you've explained in the chain of command, would be the ones that would call in the military? If we
so
ever
first,
see them?
yes, the IGP is the chair of the overall task force, as you are aware, the National Security Task Force for the elections. So he has to you know, advise the press and the police press center to explain these matters. Then the military at some point needs to clarify standard procedure in these matters, because they gave us a certain set of assurances, and that set of assurances does appear to be borne out. So we want to hear from the military how to change the operational mandate. And now, first responders, if matters come up in the police station, we pop in. Or because it's very important that people are able to rely upon, you know, the standard operating procedures that the security services present. Other than that, you start to have doubts about their motives. And when you have doubts about their motives, it doesn't take long before people start to take things into their own hands, and, you know, matters degenerate very quickly.
Yeah. Let's take a step back, because talk of military involvement has actually characterized this election more than we're used to. It started, I don't suppose that was the start of it, but one of the big events in that timeline was when the Asokwa commander made those comments about, you know, beating the hell out of anybody who tries him or his men. Of course, he did clarify even then that this would only happen if the police called them in at the point of chaos. Why do you think, I mean, just looking back at the big picture, why do you think the military's role in this election in particular has had such a spotlight?
Well, first of all, I mean, a couple of preliminary points. The military is responsible primarily for external threats. Let's not mince words around that. So when it comes to internal security, they don't have the lead. We have a sense in this country that perhaps the police don't have the wherewithal to handle all internal threats, and for which reason the military occasionally should be enlisted. The truth, though, is that, as we saw in Ayo West Wogon, the by-election that more or less was aborted, is now quite in evidence that there are parallel structures within the national security that sometimes outside the chain of command of the regular army are able to move troops. I mean, this is a suspicion, but it's born out of the proceedings that we all witnessed during the Commission of Inquiry into the Ayawaso West Wogon incident. So if that's not true, we need clarity from the national security. If it says, look, no, this is a matter for commanders, and commanders are absolutely responsible for moving troops around the country and giving orders and changing and varying orders if necessary. But to the extent that there is still suspicion that certain actors within the national security apparatus have the capacity to instruct the military to do certain things, people are going to view these incidents with great suspicion. We need absolute clarity. We need the national security to say that, no, we don't move troops, we don't instruct the military, this is a matter for their commanders, etc., etc. Then we have to be clear in our minds, when the military is moving into this civilian context, what kind of chain of command operations exists? And how do they interface with the civilian authorities in those circumstances? I think that's very important to start to allay suspicions. Because from what is building up, it begins to look like it's a national security interference of some kind in what is purely civilian administrative law and order matter.
Well, of course, as the day unfolds, we are hoping for fewer of such incidents. But let's look at the events so far in terms of how the EC has run the election. What would you say? Are you quite pleased with processes so far? Are there areas in which they could have done better?
So previous elections, we've come to the conclusion that a lot of the problems stem from congestion. So what you do is you try and estimate the average number of polling stations, voters per polling station. And then you benchmark each polling station with that. So in previous elections, we've done that analysis and realized that some particular polling stations had way more than the average. So the average is, last time it was around 447, thereabout. And there were polling stations with more than almost 1,000 people, or sometimes more than 1,000 people. That naturally creates problems. In this election, like I said, our initial preliminary scan appears to suggest limited congestion, and some have suggested maybe it's because they've increased the polling stations, but that's not correct, because the number of voters have also increased. So in actual fact, number of voters per polling station have increased from 447 to 465. So there are actually now more voters per polling station. But it could well be that distribution has improved.
Right.
If that was the case, though, that will somehow require that in the way that we did our registration, some changes will have occurred, but we didn't see that. It didn't appear as if there was any mechanism around the registration centers to redistribute. So I think what has happened today is more linked to the fact that there are fewer voters than usual. And that has led to a situation where congestion is low. And in our experience, when congestion is low, there is less tension. Because when the equipment failures and you don't have a long queue, people are patient. You fix it somehow on the other one. Secondly, I think our routine mechanisms for resolving challenges have also benefited from some improvements. In the past, when you had equipment failure, the process of switching over to manual and things like that tended to be chaotic. I think now agents are more educated and the rest of it. Though you did see the member for Ningo Pram Pram talking about the fact that he had to come in to educate some EC officers because they were not apparently aware that when you have a failure with one finger, you could change the finger and still get results in terms of authentication, voter authentication, which was very surprising. So what that means, therefore, is that on the whole, training of agents are improving, the political actors themselves are improving, so they know how to resolve these issues quickly. And it does also appear that the political parties generally are playing ball, because a lot of the problems we've had have been political actors sending people to misbehave. And so to the extent that we don't see a lot of agitation, we can't praise the EC alone. We also have to take into account that the fact that usually a lot of the agitation is politically driven. Voters on the whole, to my mind, and this is a bit surprising for those that are political fanatics, I don't think that people are as all into this election as we thought they were. I mean, going around and doing some interviews, I think the expectation that, oh, this is a do and die for a large segment of the population is not correct. I think there are some political fanatics for whom this is a do and die elections.
Yeah.
But from the voters that I've spoken to, I sense a lot more lethargy.
What accounts for that?
I think we are getting to that stage of our political maturity where there is a creeping sense that the political parties are not that different. There's a creeping sense. So even people that are sympathizers of one party or the other are no longer locked in this, how do I put it, in this sense of total exclusionism, this sense that, my party, right or wrong, it's not as strong as it used to be. So I think for a lot of people that in the past, at the least provocation, will start to misbehave, or the whole macho man phenomenon and the ability to, resource macho men and spend them to, put fear into people, intimidate people from coming to vote. I think a lot of those types of activities are winding down. Partly due to people becoming much more mature about it. I want to say that that's the picture across the entire country. But I'm saying that in very significant number of polling stations, our experience has been that there seems to be a maturity about how people vote nowadays. And some of that stems, I think, from this growing disillusion with absolute loyalty to political parties. This notion that, as an NPP or NDC or CPP person, I have to, this is the altar on which I die. I think that kind of attitude has started to reduce somewhat. We still see a lot of vitriol on social media, but it's much easier to do those things on social media. It's harder to move it. So in general, my sense is that there are multiple factors to account for this sense of calm and tranquility we are observing. One of them being obviously that the EC has not done too badly in terms of its logistics rollout. Secondly, the political parties appear to be willing to focus on the standard means of winning, despite all the talk about ways and means and fake ballot papers and pre-stamped printed ballots. You always have some of those scattered incidents. But I don't think that political parties today believe that is the primary way in which you influence elections anymore. They are using more consultants. I don't know if you are aware, but our recent investigations that we conducted suggest that the trend of using international political consultants is continuing. That the NPP, for instance, have more than one or so international consultants, including Constello PR from France, that some of their members have denied, but which, our evidence, we have strong evidence to suggest that this is the case. So there's a lot more professionalization of the elections. This tendency to rely on using tools of the trade in international political consulting. All of these things mean they are moving away a little bit from the buga and from the macho men and those kind of things. All of that, I think, is helping.
That's fascinating stuff. Now, I believe we'll be having an update pretty soon. I'm just waiting for confirmation of that. Ejura Sechere, if I'm right, is where we might be going for an update on what's unfolding there. But while we're waiting for that confirmation, let's talk about the election itself.
Indeed.
I mean, the contest.
Good.
These parties and independent candidates who are vying. First of all, I wonder if you'll agree with our guest from this morning, Professor Bafo Ajimandria, who believes that once again we have a two-horse race. Would you agree with that?
Yes, it's NPP NDC, absolutely.
Okay,
without doubt.
All right, let's talk about their strategies, right, and how they've worked themselves up to this point. It would seem that, especially in this last month, some extra effort has been thrown in by both sides. How do you think they've done? Have they done enough?
So, well, I mean, globally, there is evidence that between 10 to 20% of people make up their minds in the last month, week, day of the elections. So you want to pay some attention to your final day's campaign, for sure. But the majority don't. The majority make their minds up way before the campaign period. So I'm not sure the NPP strategy of piling up all these projects and then, flying in helicopters, moving from project to project to commission them, was entirely sound. Certainly, we've seen a much lower key campaign from the NDC, which is interesting. I feel that the NDC did not do a really sterling job in spotlighting problems that, when we talk to other people, they seem to be concerned about in the governance area. They did a lot more. They did much better when it comes to the economic conditions.
Yeah.
And then try to spotlight problems in free speech and things like that. I thought I saw a lot more emphasis there. But when it comes to governance, I think they decided that that was an elite concern, and so issues around this whole single source and thing that the NPP did so much with in the previous cycles of elections, 2012, 2016.
Yeah.
The notion that single sourcing is an absolutely reprehensible thing to do was more or less brought into the public consciousness by the NPP. And somehow the NDC has abandoned that whole approach.
You think they missed an opportunity there?
I believe so, but I think that their consultants or strategists have a view that this is something that only worries upper middle class people that care about these things. So in my experience, there was very little amplification of the work that the likes of Fourth Estate, the likes of Joy FM and others, investigative journalists, the likes of Imani, think tanks like Imani and others, myself, many people were bringing out these governance issues. I saw very little amplification by the NDC, so that was interesting. On the NPP front, I think on the whole though, the biggest lost opportunities were on the NPP side. Even though I've started obviously by criticizing the NDC approach, I feel that the NPP turned this campaign into a rally the base strategy process. The whole undertaking was about motivating their base to go and vote. That's not a completely misguided approach, because in your second term you have this incumbency case where a lot of your voters feel disappointed, some of them because they expected specific things, including your activists. Some of your activists start to feel like, they've not received as much as they thought they'd put in. They've not received it back as much as they thought they'd put in. So yes, you want to do something to activate your base, but that is something that you do in your operations. When it comes to your public messaging, you're primarily not speaking to your base, because your base you can reach through all the media and channels that you have as a structure. As a mega structure, as a party, you have all these channels and pathways of communicating with your activists and your core base. So when it comes to the campaign, you're really speaking, for the most part, to people that are very busy and are only catching snapshots and sound bites on and off intermittently during the day, during the week. And I feel that the messaging was smart. There was a sense about the messaging that I got which seemed to suggest that all the complaints were either fabricated or, were being propounded or conjured by people that already didn't like the NPP anyway. So why bother? I didn't see any attempt to really appeal to the swing votes. There was a bit of it, and so here's where it gets interesting. In the beginning, there was the Bawumia campaign team tested this approach of attempting to distance themselves from the government by suggesting that he was ushering in a new approach, and therefore that he's not Nanado.
I am my own man.
I'm my own man. I'm not Nanado. This is a new direction, etc. And then they abandoned the midway. Because initially it attracted some ridicule. Some people in the NDC and some independents started to talk about the fact that are you running away from the team, and this is not sound. You are part of the team. And then they abandoned that midway and seem to want to eat their cake and have it. So on the one hand, there's this whole digitalization, smart economists, and so expect a transformative approach. And I think my own colleague Kofi Bentel has been a major proponent of that strategy, which is, we had big problems with Nanado, but Bawumia has never had a chance. So they try to push that, while at the same time riding on the record of the party in its entirety. The infrastructure build out, attempts to try to suggest that they have done better with Doomsaw and all of these other elements. And I think that schizophrenic, that Frankenstein approach of, yes, this is a new person, this is a new transformative figure in Ghana politics. He's never been president before. The other person has been president. He's a known quantity. You know the limits of his ability. But at the same time, MVP is great. And there's nothing wrong with our record. And we are willing to go head to head with NDC, and we win on every score. Independents looked at the numbers. And even though the NDC did not do stellar, they were not extraordinary when they were in power, And we all saw the doomsday issues. We also saw the low growth in the second term. We saw the problems with agriculture, and etc. The truth is, when you do pure head-to-head, objectively, the NDC edges out the NPP marginally after you compare the two terms. Because the first of the NDC saw massive growth numbers, above 10% in various sectors.
Yeah.
It saw very low inflation. So when you average it out over the two terms, you get a number that is marginally better than the NPP. So unless the assumption is that most people don't remember and all they remember is doomsday, unless that is the understanding. The truth is that we've seen inflation numbers over the last 3 years average out over 20%.
Yeah.
We've seen exchange rate depreciation average out over the last 3 years over 20%. That has tainted the record as a whole because people remember the most recent. So when the NPP now strives to present to the public a claim that the last couple of years there were some global challenges and that was it, and for the most part they've done well, and in fact they've outperformed the NDC, they're hitting against a massive wall of facts and people's lived experiences. And I think that was where the challenge began. So over time, they stopped trying to convince the upper middle classes and the swing voters and the rest and just concentrate on the base. The problem, though, is this. It is true that marginally speaking, the NPP is the larger party of the two since 2000.
Right.
They have a slight edge. That is why when they win with bigger margins. Because whenever they attract swing voters to join their core base, it naturally overshoots. But that is a very marginal. We suspect that they are about 1 or 2% of the core base of the NDC, of the NPP, higher than the NPP in that respect. So you can't win with your core base alone. You need a very good chunk of the swing voters. Now, the swing voters are primarily coastal voters. It's Western, Central, Greater Accra, and then you go to Bono and some parts of, today we split them up so it gets confusing, but Bono. So Western, Central, Greater Accra, and the rest of it. Socioeconomic factors are hugely significant. So you need to be able to show that, yes, we acknowledge that there were certain things that we did domestically that we could have done better. There are things that we did with the bank resolutions that we could have done better. For instance, recovery. We have to go back.
Indeed, we do. We're learning of an incident that's unfolding right now. MFA has a bird's eye view. MFA, what's kicking off?
Lot in that conversation that we'll come back to. There's a lot of reactions coming. But earlier, I told you about an incident in Obuasi involving some military men and a civilian that led to some warning shots being fired, amongst others. We're told there's an operation going on right now by the Ghana Police Service to actually intervene in that particular situation. So let's head there now. You can see the vans or the pickup trucks of the police service just arriving at that scene. And I think it's a good time to hear what exactly is going on the ground.
PK, CJ, ani ayenyan no kreni nyame anim se ani ayenyan kra ewo Okankwe North abaton pesua no so se de emrante ani abre no ene maba ne sekan ne aboa di akoten no ehu Talk to me. Talk to me. Come. Relax. Talk to me. Okay. I see.
Generation. Nothing like that having happened for a year before. Intinu yenti asese bibisa happy wa. Boku for anade o maba se o mumbe. Omu yenim omu wa. Omu fi area.
Oh, the whole issue is to see the place where we are doing the ballot and the transporting is not this budget house. Before we realize we come, before we realize they were printing papers. They were printing some of the ballot papers inside budget, and they come and tip us off. So the moment we are calling the police to come and protect, they bring a certain guys from different areas to come and attack we the area boys at Achimota here. Okay. So that's the whole thing. That's what we enter. But before now we realize the PC for the NPP is the one who bring the boys to come and attack the NDC boys here. So that's what caused the whole problem. But said the motor to a born in this kind of obi to me and you see, there's some of our people who are not even there. They are just innocent people. Look at me. We are selling our meat and everything over there. Go and look at our normal people. They have wounded them. I know. But when
So, Kojo, I mentioned to you earlier that there was the Obuasi incident, but no, this is a situation in Akewteyman right here. And you see our colleague there from Adom TV, they're interacting with some youth. They are raising concerns about some men who are not supposed to be from that area, who have been brought in to cause some situation in there that they're raising concerns about. You heard her mention to them that they should stop throwing the stones and the knives around, which could injure anyone or kill somebody in the process. So the police are on the scene, and definitely I'm sure they will give us some updates on this particular situation, what exactly happened, so that they can stop this whole altercation to cause further trouble. But it looks like we'll have to go to the NDC headquarters, Kojo, because I see the communications officer of the NDC, Sami Jemfi, already addressing the media at the NDC headquarters.
So this officer of the party had in his possession sample ballot papers. These were not ballot papers. On the face of the ballot papers was written boldly, sample ballot paper. And the purpose of a sample ballot paper is voter education. And according to the constituency secretary, he was on his way to a community right on the border to educate voters there. And if you know that enclave very well, you will know that there are Ghanaians who live on the border and just across the border who ply their trade and do their business in Ghana, and vice versa. And that is a very normal phenomenon for all our border towns. So it is never true. And the proof that what the NPP said last night is total falsehood is that they were not able to adduce any evidence. They could not show you the said ballot papers. They could not. So clearly, this is a group of people who have seen that they are losing power and have become so desperate, so vicious as to churn out deliberate propaganda, deliberate falsehood to deceive the unsuspecting public. And through that, incite their hooligans to resort to violence to undermine the peace and sanctity of the process currently ongoing. We decided to ignore these frivolous allegations for good reason, because as a political party, we are very focused on what matters on the ground. And we trust in the discernment of Ghanaians to separate lies from the truth. And so we didn't even think that it was important to dignify this frivolous, baseless, concocted fabrication with any response. But it's become necessary for us to set the record straight now, because the NPP clearly is not going to stop. They are going to hold a series of press conferences to churn out nothing but lies, just so they can incite their supporters against the NDC to engage in violence, to manipulate the process, to rig the election, as they have always done. And so, a few minutes ago, the NPP held another press conference. And at this press conference, they made two major allegations. One, they claimed that somewhere in the Akache South, in the Kintampo South constituency, the police has arrested an officer of the Electoral Commission for what they describe as tearing off the top parts of the ballot paper for this election. And according to them, that top part which was torn off was the part of the ballot paper which has the image of the NPP presidential candidate, Alhaji Mahamudu Bawumia. So, according to the NPP, this is evidence that the NDC wants to rig the election. Now, we will show you a picture of that ballot paper. And so, if those in charge of the screen are ready, I want that ballot paper projected, and also show us the official statement issued by the Akache South Constituency Secretary responding to the dubious and frivolous allegations that were leveled against him by the NPP yesterday. Now, ladies and gentlemen, even before I show you this, exhibit, the question we should all ask ourselves is, does the Electoral Commission work for the NDC? Emphatically, no. So, if an electoral officer of the EC, okay, so let me take you back. This is the rejoinder issued by the Constituency Secretary of the NDC in the Akache South, Akache North constituency. And he gives a blow-by-blow account of the incident that happened and the fact that he was not arrested at all, and the fact that the ballot papers in his possession were sample ballot papers meant for voter education. The NPP has not been able to adduce a scintilla of evidence to buttress the allegation they made last night just to create false alarm. They have not been able to do that. And we dare them to come out with the basis of that allegation if they have one. Now let's quickly go to Kintamposta. Show us that torn ballot paper. Show us that torn ballot paper, which the NPP claims is evidence of the NDC rigging the election. The torn ballot paper. Now, as we wait for that, the point I was making is this. The Electoral Commission doesn't work for the NDC. The Electoral Commission is supposed to be an independent constitutional body mandated to conduct public elections in Ghana. So if one officer in the whole of Ghana, out of 40,000 polling stations, one presiding officer of the Electoral Commission, in tearing a particular ballot paper from the ballot booklet, makes a mistake, according to him, and tears not the whole top part of the ballot paper, but a small parts of the ballot paper which had the image of Bawumia. How is this? Look at the small part which was torn. It is this ballot paper that the NPP claims is evidence of the NDC rigging plots as far as this election is concerned. Nothing could be further from the truth. Clearly you can see that this is yet another frivolous allegation by a desperate, failed political party who can smell defeat coming. And so they've resorted to all manner of frivolous allegations just to incite their hooligans and their thugs to engage in violence and manipulate the electoral process. This was not done by an NDC officer. It was done by an Electoral Commission officer. And so if anybody ought to be blamed, it is the Electoral Commission and not the National Democratic Congress. It's as simple as that. In fact, we are even concerned because chances are that that voter might have voted for the NDC candidate. But if this ballot paper is rejected, that goes against the NDC. And so we even have an issue with the Electoral Commission. But of course, when you are dealing with an election being manned by human beings, you must, as a reasonable person, give room for human error. There must be a margin of error. And so you just don't pick one case like this out of 40,000 polling stations and then say that the NDC, which is not responsible for tearing ballot papers for voters, is the one responsible for this. These guys are just wasting everybody's time. Then the last allegation they made this afternoon is that the son of the NDC constituency chairman for Asokwa-La in the Ashanti region has been caught with 76 ballot papers. And so it is evidence that the NDC wants to rig this year's election. Again, this is another frivolous allegation by the NPP. Number one, the young man in question is not even per the preliminary information we have received from our executives in Asokwa-La. He's not even of voting age. He's a minor, number one. Number two, the young man has a mental problem. And number three, the young man was not caught with ballot papers. He was caught with, or they found sample ballot papers in his custody. So here again, we are not talking about ballot papers. but sample ballot papers meant for voter education. And because this is a young guy with, a mental issue, he went on the frolic of his own to this polling station for reasons best known to him, and he was caught. That cannot be evidence of the NDC trying to rig an election with sample ballot papers. Who rigs an election with sample ballot papers? When any reasonable man ought to know that during the sorting process, that sample ballot paper will be flagged as a foreign material and removed from the ballot papers, which will be eventually counted and the votes collated.
And no any year pre Sisia. Etino Yabedru Hanomo, Yeve, Niesi, any Kwaya, police commander, no, Wabe Brifi, Ami who incidents, near the appropriate report, Ako. But what I'm seeing now is the youth having gathered to resist an attempt to frustrate the elections. Na me hu se soja fo nso ete afidie mu eba na menim se eduru honoma because eboba akonso e de share ni se yem fe soja fo emba sa abato yi mu eji se ho abehia me hu se mbabunu na abochenku wa hanomo na afe ye de soja fo aba e se wo mu kirekire mu police fo no Dr. Tukuno, dear Metias, no, and dear Metias, a soldier for Kami Metias, say, police for and a bubble buying. Now, a drew baby edging some more and wedding, almost for reinforcement. Now, baby, a casa, your papa, and I don't was to hang my papa, and some perform on Beshu to your way. One more, Womubeshu to your langas for no more. So much or more, a mubajo. Because if the police have arrested the people, there will be peace. But if they have allowed the people to run away, there will not be peace. Because peace is a product of the actions of the security agencies. So they should arrest them.
Okay. Eti wusha sadia etiena emrantie no asoja for aba.
And the Akewteyman situation still ensuing, where at the NDC headquarters, where Samijinfi has been addressing the media. But we ought to also take you to the Akewteyman area. And as we speak, it looks like there's a military reinforcement. They've just come into the scene. And of course, Peter Boamo Tukuno, the former Deputy General Secretary of the NDC, they interacted with my colleague on the ground, raising concern about the presence of the military, asking that those persons who came into that constituency to foment trouble should be arrested by the police, and once they are able to arrest these persons, calm will be restored to the area. So it remains to be seen what exactly the military is going to do together with the personnel on ground, because we see heavy police presence on the ground. We see some immigration officials also on the ground, but it does appear that the youth in that area are still agitated. They are insisting that some of their colleagues were hurt in the process by the people that came to the constituency. They are accusing the NPP parliamentary candidate of being behind those thugs or persons who came into that constituency to foment trouble, injuring some persons in the process. They are calling for a decisive action to be taken when it comes to that particular situation. Some of them are still interacting with my colleague on the ground, and we would want to hear what exactly their concerns are this time around.
Almost why don't you know more no? I hear for a bowl. I am before now. I'm before. I am me. And the discipline Baku for no move to Bakuna by. I know Musha Salam said, Yamu Sanko. Yes, I am Bishop Mojago. And to me, Cassano, to me, Cassa, we and this and of them in the Yandis today. One of this guy, PM has a lot of something. You have Brum Yaman in Abubuya. And that's not taking out a Thomas Sunu, Multimicade. Eba, I just want to call it. Now, Balabox was raw. As a Somi, or my Yamba, and Kachanura, Yamba, and the best hell, now go you Balabox number. Yes, I know, poor booming, yes, Meso microphone, me make it tell you. I said, if persuasion fails, force must be applied. In the nutshell, that's what I want to talk to understand better, right? So you pass this message to them. If persuasion fails, force must be applied. Exhausted, right?
Akewteyman, I say, I'm a man from free baby, Mamma Jimmy. I say, so I'm with Jimmy. I ever saw about Tom say, and Bama, you go.
I'm make it yourself. I'm a ballot Moses. And I say, I'm wearing him. Yes, I had the force because I
made us say, Boko, Bema, Patrol meeting.
Watch out, dear, more friendly, my papa, only. Watch out, dear, for you know, watch out, yes, and I have 2 abano. Would you know, Chief Virginia, there? Number of a complaining, I want more bodyguards, a boom offer. And I go for the whole issue, Nabano. To Muni or Moncasano Munjai Sadi no Moyeno, Yempesa our.
Made us say, what said your aircona, NDC, a soldier for Naba, posted for no do one swabba. The Omo can say Langas and any macho men now. Omo has said, Omo one lady, as Mammy Dokia, or no end a duomaba, Omo a den more so. Almost sounds to say ballot box. E what ma one more age in na omo yimpie and said omo be fi han ma omo fi han mo na ye hye said ya soldier force buso e come nerves omo ni omo e kasa ama aja abotre aba na omo tumi afi omo fi ha kra koye e na omo nyina aso hu sasrafo ne ba no e na omo nya srafo na san aba na Dr. Tukuno mpacho ha te say obe den
Kobusa police for the summer bed. Police for no Kobusa summer bed. Babusa said, one move free and the other inside. Wama Komu Asemu, nobody is coming out. And so you can't control them. They are also suspicious. And so they must come and speak to leadership. Then we'll see how we can de-escalate together. But who can say inside? Now we are ready to for us to know what exactly is inside, it will continue escalating. But yes, it's the money police for Nkokasa. They give to the council.
Me da se bema botre. Aja, bema boss, bema. My calm down. Yebekasa meba, yebekasa.
Ose, me ni kasa bia mekasa. Mo kasa ntia Kufuado. Or puppies. That's
the youth in that area and interacting still with my colleague on the ground. So the concern, I hear them also say that there's a ballot box in the building that they are hoping that will be brought out. And until that is done, they would ensure that it is brought out. But these are still... They remain allegations that they are putting out or telling my colleague on the ground, and you hear her insist that these are allegations. One other guy told her earlier that he was beaten by the facts that were brought in, and they are alleging that this is from the NPP parliamentary candidate of the area, and this is happening in Akewteyman. And I bet that Kojo, the police will give us some updates on this. And I didn't just finish, and I'm seeing the police on the podium. Let's see if, in fact, they are actually addressing this particular issue.
The shooting incident, but left behind his vehicle, which has been impounded and is now with the police. An intelligence-led operation has been launched to get the suspect arrested to face the full rigor of the law. We want to assure the public that we will surely get him arrested. Thank you. Erie posi yefi asie hwehwe abrante bi anidindi Muhajid Suraj a yesan friend no mems se wako Ewutu Senya East constituency ho ewo Central region mfimfini mantem a wako botu ama epra nipa baako na abrantie yi etutu ni wieye no odwane fi bia ho eja ne ka ewechire samre aye kase ka ne wo posifo nsem na yama aposifo a ya hyeda atete omo wonhwehwe niema omutimi hwehwe niema etise mu ema yedi na chi deden ni ehwehwe no na eyeden ya yensa beka no arehema yede magana fo se munya arehemu ewoyemu na bebia wakwa akoshebia yensa ebeka no yedamasi.
So that's that press conference just gone by. I was hoping that it will be an update on the Akewteyman situation, but I'm sure that we'll definitely get some response. Our men are on the ground at the police headquarters, and women as well. Our men and women are on the ground at the police headquarters, and they will definitely get some answers for us on this Akewteyman situation, because it does appear that the tension is heightening as we speak, and we're hoping that the personnel on the ground will be able to de-escalate the situation. Together with the NDC former Deputy General Secretary on the ground, who is hoping that the police or the personnel on the ground will be able to give them some assurances in terms of how this situation will be dealt with. But the police has also been giving updates on a shooting incident in Akewteyman East, which has led to the injury of one person. They are told that the person who perpetrated this act actually left his vehicle behind, and they are doing everything possible to apprehend that person, and as and when they do, they'll give us updates on this. But we are also watching the Akewteyman situation. Dr. Norman, I was hoping that we're going to talk about other things that Bright Simmons raised a while ago, including the impassiveness, the lack of interest he talks about, and also the number of polls we saw when it comes to this particular election. But it does appear that we are having a number of security situations. In the last few minutes, the NPP or the NDC has been addressing the ballot incidents that they describe as sample and not real ballot papers that the NPP was referring to. Then we are also hearing about this Akewteyman, and in fact seeing it on the screens and hearing it on the radio, and the Akewteyman East shooting incident as well. Don't forget the Nyankpala shooting, 1 person dead, 1 person injured, and then Akewteyman, 1 person injured as a result of that shooting incident. What exactly is going on?
Yes, it's almost like an hour to finish the voting, and it is the desperation of the people. With respect to the sample ballot paper, that Miracle Abuaji made us all believe that it was a real, actual ballot paper. If that happened, I think that is irresponsible on the part of the NPP. If it was a sample ballot paper, he should have indicated that, because engaging in falsehood at this critical moment is very similar to misinformation and disinformation, which we all abhor that. So I believe that we need the truth to come out clearly. With respect to the violence in Akewteyman, I actually expected more in that area because it is a hotspot, criminal hotspot, political voting hotspot when it comes to violence. So I am not surprised, but the police is in hot pursuit of the perpetrator, and I believe they will catch this individual, and he should be punished properly. With respect to the Akewteyman woman, or
yes, Akewteyman woman, yeah,
right,
and he mentions
the
that
son of the NDC chairman. It's quite interesting, the characteristics of the young man who is a minor, who has mental defect, and also it was a sample ballot paper. We need to verify the veracity of this, because it is too good to believe, so we need to verify that.
But how about his watering down of the fact that the ballot tearing incident by the electoral official, insisting that it's just a small portion that was torn, so it shouldn't be an issue? We are told it's 15 of them. Police has told us about the numbers. The EC has also told us about the numbers. But we're hearing some media, if you water it down, saying that it's just a small portion, so it does look like it's really nothing.
I think NDC should distance itself from the tearing of the ballot paper, because I do not believe that any official of any of the parties, whether NDC, Butterfly Movement, NPP, will instruct somebody to go and destroy ballot paper. So that is the sole responsibility of the perpetrator, unless there's something more.
Okay, well, but in this Akewteyman situation, for instance, at least you've been watching it, listening to it for some time. What do you expect should be done decisively to de-escalate the situation as it's building up?
I think the way it is going with the presence of the military, which we all talked against that they shouldn't do that, the way the military is still there, it makes me quite worried that as it gets darker, things are going to get out of control. And the young men are not going to give up. They want the military to retreat. Let the police do their job. This is what we've been saying all along, because I don't see the substantive difference in terms of security that the presence of the military has added to the situation.
But this is a situation that was building up before the military came in. Is it the case that you are confident that this situation can be handled by the police as it stands? Because it does appear it's been going on and they've not been able to handle the situation.
I understand. I like the fact that their weapons were pointing down, but they are in full gear. I mean, is this a war situation that you have to go in full armored gear? Why? This is election. You shouldn't go to a polling station in full gear when nobody has done anything yet.
Okay. Well, my colleague Nana Boache Dankwa is on standby. Kojo, let's head to the Ashanti region, and we're told he's on top of a situation that he will give us updates on. Nana, what's the situation where you
11 p.m. we still could not locate the exact place of the papers, but we didn't just leave it like that because our sources tells us that indeed there are some ballot papers that will be used for whatever operation that the NPP wants to do. So we continue the search this morning. Unfortunately, as at 3 p.m., I mean, an hour to that, we finally had hint that this place could be the location of these ballot papers. And so we came in and entered the house. Fortunately, the door was somehow loose. So we entered and found out the passes that they had just been taken away by the police. When we broke a seal of one, we found out that it's ballot papers, and indeed confirms the intel that we picked since yesterday up to this place.
So does it mean that these people were not gathering the area that you believe that they had kept these ballot papers?
As to how this is a very big house, enough to accommodate a lot of people. I'm not sure they really suspected the move by us, and for that matter, we didn't put in some security measures that they should have. Again, I also believe with the little intel I have that because they needed to use it before the close of polls, they will have to leave it open, that you don't come in and say that the person was not around and so we are unable to. So that is how some of us really saw the security of this area.
Did you find anybody in there, maybe tampering or anything? Were the ones that you intercepted tampering?
No, we found 3 ladies, one with a baby, and in there we are yet to find out whether there are any males in there and whether the ladies were the ones going to do the thumb printing. How they were going.
So that's the national organizer, Joseph Yamin, there interacting with my colleague, Nanaya Ojima Kwadaso. We are told about some suspected ballot that has been intercepted, taken away by the Ghana Police Service. And we should get some clear update on this, whether indeed they are not sample ballot papers, indeed whether they are true ballot papers, what exactly they are. Joseph Yamin has been giving updates to my colleague, Nanaya Ojima in Kwadaso. The Electoral Commission is currently addressing the media. Let's head to the EC headquarters.
We are also pleased to inform you that the candidate agents are cooperating very well on the field, and we will urge them to continue through the 1 hour plus left for voting and during the collation too, because we should all have the belief that it is the voter who determines who should be our leaders. It is not in the hands of the Electoral Commission or any other institution. We are also happy to inform you that we are getting the necessary cooperation from the security services. So the security services are also on top of their job, and they are also performing to satisfaction. We are happy to also tell you, the media, that your colleagues at the polling station and the rest are also working very well. So we continue to urge you to help in giving the right information and not being sentimental and to exaggerate issues. Let us be realistic and know that every information that we are putting across is the truth, nothing but the truth. Whenever I meet your media people, I always tell them that whenever you are putting a message across, know that it's not your personal integrity, but integrity of your employer. Because if you put any information across and turns out to be true, to be false, you have disgraced your own institution, not the Electoral Commission. So please let us be sure, with this age of misinformation and disinformation and fake news, deep fake, let us be sure that when you see even a video or audio, you need to check, especially when you were not there personally and you were informed by somebody. Other than that, you will help in circulating fake and deep fake. So that is that. So thank you once again for coming, and we wish Ghana well. Thank you very much.
At this point, we'd like to take 5 questions. You raise your hand. Shall we have a mic on the left side and another at the right side so that please go behind the mic. As we've been doing, mention your name and then your media house. I will give 1 question each.
All right. Sorry. Please, my name is Zita Okwan. I work for Class FM. My question has to do with the temporary suspension of voting in Medina because rains have erupted the... Rains, yes. So I want to find out, voting is ending at 5 p.m. Are we to see an extension of time in Medina?
Yes, next question.
Doc, Mawina with TV3. First off, in your address, you mentioned that all your BVD machines were working, but a colleague has got notification from the Lomnava polling station in the Asaacoco constituency as well, where the report suggests that there's difficulty in voting proceeding smoothly because the machines are not being effective there. Has that come to your attention as well? That's one. And then the second is videos that are being circulated on social media by the NDC that ballot papers have been picked up somewhere in the Ashanti region. I believe as a commission it will be of interest to you with regards individuals banding reports which suggest that they've up to 500,000 ballot papers. What's the Commission's response to some of these things, just to clear the air?
Please, where is the location of that story?
It's on, I think, the Ashanti region. There are videos on social media with their national organizer, amongst other things.
So you don't have an idea of the specific place?
No, we don't have an idea, but I'm just asking if the Commission can clarify on some of these things.
All right, so my name is Maxwell with Onuya TV. I want to pick the Commission's reaction on shooting incidents at certain polling stations, and does it have any potency of marring the beauty of your exercise?
Please come again with your question.
Yes. So we have received shooting incidents with pictures and videos at certain polling stations.
Let's be specific.
Good.
So that we can...
Nyankpala, resulting in 1 death. Yes. So your reaction on that, and then does it have any way of destroying the beauty of the exercise?
Vanessa from Metro TV. I think when my colleagues were asking questions, you were asking them to be specific. Is it that you were not seeing the videos that are going around? You are not seeing that. Okay. The reports that have been made by both sides, NDC and PP, and then the arrested polling station guy that tore off, I think, the first...
Oh, that was, we have mentioned that.
I know. So are you saying that with that and other things that are going on social media that are raising concerns, you've not seen that? Or you've not heard that? Or they are yet to bring that to your attention? Because it looks like when they're asking questions, you said, be specific, be specific. Yeah, an NPP, like on social media, once again, an NPP member arrested in Bolgatanga Central with a tamperinted ballot papers. I mean, these are things that you might want to go on social media, if you care, to look at those things, because we are getting those informations and we need clarifications, I believe. And so I believe that when you go and you get this information, you are supposed to clarify instead of saying, I mean, things like that, like make a specific something. Like you're supposed to brief out on those things, right? Thank you. Yes, I asked the question. The question is, are you saying that you've not seen the videos, the comments by both NDC and NPP on social media suggesting that both sides are, some printing already ballots, and then people are being caught in hotels? I gave a specific, like Bolgatanga. People have been arrested. Are you saying you've not seen that to address those? You've not seen it?
Yes, the last question.
Yes, Doc.
But you have already asked your question.
Just a last question in relation to the YND. I know Mr. Samuel Tete had explained earlier in relation to that, but we've seen on Fact Check Ghana issuing a release that yes, indeed, it is true that 1,200 ballot papers went missing at YND, and so it will serve the interests of everybody if the Electoral Commission can clarify that again for us.
Okay. So, yeah, first, with respect to the rains disrupting the activities at Medina, voting ends at 5 o'clock. So if it rains and it stops before the 5 o'clock, we will still give room for people who are in the queue, and we will handle them up to the time that we clear the last person in the queue. So voting does not stop at 5 o'clock. But when there are people in the queue, we will cover them up to the time that we'll cover the last person. So I don't think the rain disrupting for some time will have any effect on the elections. With respect to the Lomnava BVD challenge, it has not come to our attention, so we will call the officers concerned and verify, and if it is true, it should be addressed. Because we have the main BVD, we have a spare BVD, we have the power bank, and we have spares at the district and at the region. So I will be surprised that if the two that were allocated are not functioning well, the officer will have to fall on the district for the district spares. If you do it one fail, there are regional spares. So some of these things, till you talk to the right person, you may end up giving the wrong information. So we don't want to comment on it when we are not on top of that. But I will be surprised that it's a good, true story. Then with respect to videos of ballots, security and the rest, and the social media issues and the rest. That's why before you ask your question, I was talking of let us be very careful of, come again. That is exactly so. So that's why I wanted you to be specific, because we have had a lot of them. When you go and check from our officers, you realize that it is not true. That's why I was saying be specific, so that if it is, for example, we had the one from Achuma-Kwanwoma, about some 79 ballots. I don't know whether you had it. We talked to this officer personally. He said he also heard of it. And when you followed up, he said that it is now with the regional commander. So in such a case, what do you say? So till you have the facts about it, you cannot speak to it. Because you cannot come here and chant half-truth. Other than that, will be deceiving you. So if it's only when you give it the specific, then we see whether they are in line with those that we heard, that they have turned out to be false. Then we can talk to that. So the mention of NDC NPP doesn't change anything. Till we have the facts, we cannot talk about issues that we are not so sure of. And don't think that any information you see in the social media is the truth. Be very careful about that. So you too can also find out, cross-check and be sure that what you are hearing or seeing, are they the truth? So it doesn't follow that once it has been in the circulation, that means they are the truth. With respect to the Nyankpala shooting incident, we've heard of that. We have contacted the IGP. They are also working around it. So now we have also been confirmed that one person has been shot dead, but the security people are doing the investigation and they are on top of the situation. So in order not to make any comment that will escalate issues, let's allow it and let the security people work on that. But voting is ongoing. Mr. Te will now talk to the Yendi issue.
So, with respect to the Yendi issue, we've spoken with the regional director. We've also spoken with the district electoral officer and then the returning officer. Currently, voting is ongoing at all the polling stations, and we have not had any reported incidents of ballot shortage. So that is the situation. There was an earlier mix-up with the validating stamp, which we need to correct. Yes, it has the presidential as well as the parliamentary embossed on the validating stamp. But as explained earlier, it does not render the ballot paper invalid. You can clearly see the presidential ballot as well as the parliamentary ballots. So the swapping of the two does not invalidate the ballot paper. Thank you.
I would like to take this opportunity to thank all of you for coming. Our next press update will be at 6 o'clock. 6 p.m., yes.
And that's the EC Director of Training, Dr. Sribo Kweku, there addressing the media on some issues that have come up. And you saw Dr. Bosman Osari's presence there as well at that particular press conference. Kujo, it does appear that a lot is happening as we speak, and we are hoping that we can get some immediate responses also from the police, especially on the Akewteyman situation that we are watching as we speak, and then also the Kwadaso incident. And my colleagues, Israel Laye and Elton Brobe, are on standby at the EC headquarters, and definitely they will bring us more on this particular Kwadaso situation, whether indeed these ballot papers that the NDC claims that intercepted is actually sample ballot or true ballot papers. These are things that we'll be looking into. So I don't know if we should go back to our earlier conversation with Bright Simmons, but Kojo, I'm sure that you would want to take over at this point, but there were concerns that Dr. Norman wanted to react to, especially the bit about the impassiveness and the lack of interest or enthusiasm in this particular process. Dr. Norman, you were dying to actually intervene on that particular matter. What exactly you disagree that people do not have interest in this particular elections?
Yes. Thank you very much. Bright Simmons is somebody I've admired for a long time, so I'm not criticizing him, only the statement that he made. I think Bright is speaking from a position of an intelligentsia, because when he says that the data about the governance and all of that, the economy wasn't there, I think
Sort of, you're referring to the middle class. You feel
The middle class.
addressing the middle class. Okay.
I think that is not correct because I have followed particularly Alan Shomatin, John Mahama, and Baumia, and they have all been speaking, but the way John Mahama does it is that he reduces to the level of the average person. The price of kenke, the price of tomato, the price of this, the price of that. So for me, I think they have addressed the economic issues at the level that the average Ghanaian can understand. But when it comes to people at his level, he wants more statistical, higher level statistical approximation. That will not be possible in a campaign because you have to speak at the level of maybe 12th grade so that everybody can understand. Also, I have seen each one of these men campaigning with their vice presidential candidates, campaigning very vigorously to visit all the constituencies in Ghana. That is a serious commitment to campaigning on issues. Otherwise, it will be boring. So I totally disagree. The Ghanaians are ready for 8-year switch. Okay. And because of that, they are steady in their determination. When we look at the turnout, the voter turnout of the security officers,
that's a special voting, yeah.
83% turnout. It is very commendable, very high. And I praise the EC for being able to organize that.
You're looking at that kind of turnout for this particular election.
And as a case study,
for the main one.
I think it will reflect in the overall popular votes in Ghana. The turnout will be very commendable. So for me, I don't see where there is no ambivalence on the part of Ghanaians. Just because they are not out there making noise doesn't mean they are ambivalent. And when ambivalence is low, interest is high, turnout will be high. So, Bright, my brother, relax. Ghanaians are ready for a change.
Okay, well, there's a situation in Asaacoco, LA, a polling station at Sechedumase. But of course, let me go to Kojo on this, and then I'm sure Bright is listening in on the concerns or the reactions that have coming from Dr. Norman on this. I was also itching that you would put the issues about polls, the number of polls we saw in the lead up to this particular election, and then he can box the two together, and then we can go to Sechedumase on this.
Absolutely, MFA. And it's turning into a rather interesting banter between my studio and yours and my guest and yours. But Dr. Norman making some interesting rebuttals to your point about your assessment of the NDC's strategy going into this election, right? Your suggestion that they didn't put as much premium on issues of governance as they did on the economy, free SHS and so forth. You feel they didn't put as much into that. Dr. Norman feels differently.
Yeah, I think the way it works is about information intensity. When it comes to things like the economic situation in the country, many people have a lived experience. You experience it yourself. So you need somebody to hit on it once and twice, thrice, then it kind of settles. When it comes to things like governance, procurement, you need to educate voters as to why it's a problem. That's much more challenging. And obviously, it's not every voter who is going to care. So your upper middle class, your slightly better off economically voters who are not essentially hungry and blaming the government, but they are disappointed, they are disgusted, they have a different set of emotions. Those people need to be enlightened as to why a particular set of behaviors fall below a standard. So when you are communicating to the general public, you need to segment, but you have to spend more time on those who require education. Because for those people who are going to vote because the price of kenke is high, you just have to remind them the price of kenke is high. You don't spend 32 hours, in a 2-week cycle trying to explain that the price of kenke is high. But if you're trying to explain to someone, as we've been trying to do recently, that the current situation that we have at the airport, where e-gates have been launched as if it's something new, when the truth is that the World Bank has paid over $20 million. We are told the World Bank that everything was fine. The World Bank has written a report that everything was brilliant and given us more money to relocate it from Terminal 2 to Terminal 3. And then it turns out the project was a complete failure and nobody can explain why. And we are now paying somebody else, you know, the same company that works on our national card, ID card, and they've made costings that we've seen suggesting that they believe the whole thing is going to cost over $240 million. Look at how much time I'm taking to explain even to you, a very senior journalist in Ghana, all that elements. We're going to spend at least an hour if I want to go into all those details. So if you don't spend more time there, and you make the assumption that because the average person cares about the price of Kinky, so the bulk of your messaging should be around those things, I think you are mistaken. Why? Because the average person's information needs are minor. So you don't need to spend as much time. You just have to make sure that you are communicating in visually stimulating forms and things like that. There are skits and those things. But when it comes to the voter education aspect of things, as to why things are bad in the economy, bad in the political landscape, I think it takes more time. So that's the point I was making.
Right. And this is why you felt that they missed an opportunity
I think so, because I'm in civil society.
Right.
And I spend a lot of my time doing watchdog duties. And when the NPP was in opposition, the NPP did a fantastic job amplifying the work that we did. There were times when you could discern what looked like collaboration. A lot of the NDC accusations that civil society was against NPP, I was against NDC, was due to misunderstanding of how these things work. If I have a small audience of a few tens of thousands, and I put out some reports, and a politician who can reach 1 million people amplifies that, why would I not cooperate with that politician? It's just common sense. So in a situation where, in my experience, in the 4 years that we've just seen, you know, the NDC did so little to engage with civil society around governance matters, which are complex issues that are difficult. The information content is heavy. The intensity of information is heavy. So you need a lot of amplification. And we didn't see a lot of that. Remember during the period when we had the Occupy Flagstaff House, Occupy Citizen Ghana movement, and all of those things? Do you realize the number of NPP leaders who, I'm using infiltrated, you know, advisedly, civil society to drive that agenda? I think that was very effective in the 2016 turnout, plus the 2016 results and the margin that they won, the nearly 1 million margin that they won. A lot of that came from the fact that they saw that the middle class, the swing voters, and the rest of it, they are much more likely to turn out because they are disappointed and disgusted, rather than simply because they themselves are feeling the pinch. I'm not saying that there's anybody in Ghana who is not feeling the pinch from the inflation and the rest of it, but the truth of the matter is that you don't wake up in the morning hungry. You don't wake up in the morning feeling like food is a problem. So for you, even though the price of kinky matters and the price of bread matters, it's not going to drive you to vote. You need to have a sense of disgust, a sense of disappointment, a sense of apprehension. Certain types of emotions which are harder to tap into require more information. And that is the point I was making about the NDC campaign having missed out on the governance element. But that was by the by. That was by the by.
Yeah. Well, it's made for some fascinating banter. I'll tell you what else. MFA raised the issue of polls.
Yes.
And that's another thing that has characterized election 2024.
Indeed.
Lots of polls. And sometimes disagreeing with each other.
The problem, though, is that, you know, polls are great when they are longitudinal, when the particular pollster has done it for successive elections, and you can predict, you know, the likely accuracy of that, because you know their track record, and then you have multiple such polls. I was very disappointed that Sinovac this time around didn't put in a poll. I didn't even see did you see a poll by the Political Science Department of the University of Ghana?
Not that I recall. No.
So
there's one from a professor at KNUST.
No, KTU.
That was it. KTU.
Yeah,
Thank you.
University. So we had a problem with not enough longitudinal polls, right? Enough polls that you could say, okay, this person, based on their track record, I can apply a weighting to whatever they say, versus this other person apply another weighting to whatever they say, and then I get a certain average. Second, the actual number of polls were not as significant as they will be in other more advanced jurisdictions. So that makes it more difficult to average out and apply a certain statistical significance, you know, strategy. Basically try and say, okay, we have so many polls, so if they are all signaling this pattern, then there's something there. We have far fewer polls that we need for that kind of analysis. However, the truth is we did get some polls, and we adjust for bias, because some of the pollsters are be biased for one reason or the other for a while. So I'll give you a very practical example. There's a group called Outcomes International, and investigations have now established by the Fourth Estate and others have established that Outcomes International is extremely close to the ruling party and to the incumbent, to the Baumia the vice president, and the NPP. So we're going to, in our modeling, what we do is that we significantly underweigh Outcomes International, and you do that in other respects. Musa Dankwa, which is the Global Info Analytics, very famous
Yeah.
poll now, the one that most of the international media have been picking up.
Mm.
And when the international media say the polls are in support of President Mahama winning, it's actually because they're not seeing a lot of the other polls. Because when you now look at it, it's almost split even. Because the EFSIN poll is for Vice President Bawumia.
That's right.
There have been other polls from the likes of Professor Masapon, that's the K2U one, etc. So in the truth of the matter is that the polls at this stage are actually evenly split. But the international media don't see some of the smaller polls. Then we've had these social media affinity polls that the likes of Maximus Ametogo and the rest are doing, which are currently actually favoring the incumbent.
Right.
So what you do is you weight them. You apply judgment. So for instance,
Well, so that's the issue of polls, but we'll definitely return to it. But NPP headquarters, I should say, that's where we need to go at this point. And Justin Frimpong-Kudia, the General Secretary of the party, addressing the press.
Left is for our agents to be vigilant at this closing stage. I want to use this opportunity to anyone who is yet to cast his or her vote that this is important as part of our democratic dispensation to exercise your franchise, and it is not late. So far as you are in the queue, even if it is 5 p.m., you still have the right to vote. What I want to send out, particularly to our vigilant agents in the voter region, that I commend you for the vigilance and the hard work that you have done in policing our polling stations to make sure that we are not cheated. But we are not there yet. We are entering into the critical stage, which has to do with the counting of the voter or the ballot papers. Let us continue to be vigilant. Let us not sleep. Let us make sure that the accurate votes are what are going to be counted. Again, we also want to call on the Electoral Commission that earlier on we received some disturbing news in some parts of the country. To be more specific, Kintampo South, where we had some of their personnel tampering with the ballot papers. At this crucial moment, we are also asking them to also be very, very professional in the work that they are doing, to make sure that we will not record deliberate spoiled ballot papers. Again, for our agents across the country, we ask you once again, please open your eyes and make sure that you record the right and accurate vote for His Excellency Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia and the New Patriotic Party. We are also calling on the Ghana Police Service and the security agencies to make sure that our polling centers are safe. Because from the report that we've gathered from some parts of the country, our opponents, sensing that they are going to be defeated or they are going to lose the elections, want to cause chaos in some polling centers, particularly our stronghold. So we are calling on the police service, the security service, to be at the polling center. And when the collation has been done at the polling center also, we also want them to be stationed at the collation center. We in the NPP are very sure that the votes that has gone into the ballot boxes, His Excellency Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia will definitely come out as a winner in this year's elections. All that is important is for us to make sure is that we are very vigilant at all these centers, from the polling center to the collation center, and inshallah, victory shall be ours. Our people, you should rise up, you should be at all the places that you need to be. At this point in time, when we are about to close, move to the polling station and make sure that at least our votes are secured and protected. Thank you very much.
That's the General Secretary of the NPP, Justin Frimpong-Kodia, there, urging supporters to go out and vote as we prepare to close the polls. It's 4:38, under 30 minutes to go for the close of polls, but we must educate you that indeed, as at 5 p.m., if you're still in the queue at any of the polling stations, you're allowed to vote. So it's not too late to make your way to the polling centers if you really want to exercise your franchise in this particular exercise. Well, I was telling you about Asaacoco-La polling center at the Dumasi constituency. We are told that NPP and NDC agents clashed over counting machines being used by the NDC agents at the center. So that's live pictures of what transpired at that center. Nana Boachi Dankwa was in the middle of all this, interacting with them.
Country Aba, every national, every region, constituency. Yade Kayaba, Yade Kayan almost on Montias.
A machine bear.
A machine had to say mobile phone, or some mobile phone.
That's your counting machine.
Yes, counting machine said I won't count to a book, so said I won't mark, said I won't mark, and no more could be a mark almost on Montias. Some is almost on a number of more candidates say digital. Yeah, Trumps are digital, and this for any digital, a bagana. Digital when they try
oh no, must counting machine a day.
Almost a woman, must counting machine if you are
So from his explanation, there's a counting machine and be provided by the NDC to their polling agents across the various polling centers, and then this counting machine for the NPP, they are not going to agree for the NDC to have them at the various polling centers. They say that it is disrupting the network issues, and then the biometric verification machine that the EC is using, and that is why they decided to ask them to leave if they are not ready to move out or to take off the counting machine, and that is what is causing some form of disturbances in the Dumasi constituency, and that's the words of the NDC's polling agent here. Also how on say okay, so maybe we would get to hear him clearly, but then what we know is that for them, the NPP, it is not right for the NDC agents to have any counting machine, and then the counting machine, as a matter of fact, is disrupting the network issues or the network that is required for the EC to proceed with the biometric verification.
The situation at Asaacoco-La, Nana Boachi Dankwa gave us updates on that. We would find out from him how that particular issue was resolved in the end. But we also told about some tension in Akewteyman when the Zongo youth allegedly attacked the Member of Parliament for Kwewu South, Honorable Davis Opoku Ansa OPK, and the Municipal Chief Executive Emmanuel Atafori Sr. Well, the incident, we are told, followed a clash between the NPP and some NDC supporters, with the NDC accusing the NPP of attempting to snatch their members' authorities' work to restore order. Really, that's the situation. I'm trying to make sense out of that situation in this particular constituency, but that's what we are told happened there. We'll touch base with our correspondent in a number of areas that we are told about some incidents that occurred. We are also told about some confusion between supporters of NPP and NDC at the government health station, polling station at Kota in Ayinswano constituency. So that's the pictures there. You can see the youth almost in a near fisticuff. The confusion, we are told, came as a result of both supporters expressing concern and dissatisfaction over a lady who helped a voter to cast her vote. And they were concerned about that and led to a near fisticuff. But I'm sure that incident was finally resolved. It does look like it actually ended in that fisticuff. It wasn't near. They actually fought. And also, we are told about a situation in Sefi, Amoya, in Bodi constituency. 3 people, we're told, have been arrested and 2 persons injured. And it's unclear over what exactly, but it happened at the polling station, Amoya, in Bodi constituency, 1 polling station there. And you can see the police. But the MP has been speaking to us on this. Let's listen to him.
But the mission here is as a speaking, most of the stuff for Roma, I'm going to come. And so that and you know exactly what normally it will be.
And that's the MP for the area, Samson Ahi. Unfortunately, we have a poor quality in sound there, so we are unable to hear his account of what exactly happened that led to the arrest of these 3 persons and 2 injuries in Bodi, Amoya, and that's in the Bodi constituency, Amoya, in one of the polling stations in the constituency. And we are inching closer and closer to the end of polls, and there have been a number of incidents. But of course, the EC also tells us, and we've heard from Cordeo and the election observers mention that largely it's been a very, very peaceful exercise. The EC, as at 2 p.m., also mentioned that they had recorded 50% turnout as at 2 p.m. So we are hoping to hear at the end of it all, we'll find out what exactly the turnout is. But you've heard the General Secretary of the NPP, Justin Kodia, raise concerns about low turnout, and they are urging their supporters to move out there and vote in the dying embers of this particular election. So largely, Dr. Norman, I'll also go to Kojo shortly on this as we continue to touch base as we draw closer and closer to poll closing for today. So you've heard, I've touched base with all the various constituencies and where we've recorded some incidents. You were saying that it could have been more. At least we've been able to manage the situation.
Yes. I think the EC has done a good job. I think we should actually clap for Madam Jane Mensah and her team. The Ghana police has also done a fantastic job. What actually impresses me the most is the periodic press releases or press conference by the EC. This is an innovative approach to updating the citizen, and it lowers the expectations of people or the anxiety that people have. But with respect to the violence, our democracy is still in its nascent stages. And so we should expect certain level of violence to happen every single time. Maybe 20 years from now, we can have an election without any kind of violence.
So for you, strategy, as we speak, should remain in terms of policing, security.
Yes.
Very much acceptable. Okay.
Yes.
Well, I don't know what Bryce Simmons thinks so far about everything that has happened as we inch closer and closer to the end of polls. Kojo, over to you.
Yeah, MFR, Bryce Simmons, obviously will have a lot to say. But I'll tell you what we're going to do, okay? You were making a point about the polls. I'll let you complete that. You were sort of explaining how it sort of evens out, except that there might be some waiting required. After that, we'll talk about this voter turnout thing, right? And then keep watching. Bryce Simmons will predict the outcome of the elections. All right, so let's wrap up with the polling.
Okay, so just as the pollster themselves has to try and get a representative sample, and therefore has to wait, apply different ways to it to try and get a balanced sample, we also have to take the multiple polls that are out there and other projections. Like I've said, there are people doing things on social media and things like that. And for each of them, we apply weights to them to try and ensure that the degree to which they are reflective of the likely outcome is sustained.
Right.
So I was talking about social media. I was saying Asaacoco, for instance, projecting an NPP win based on social media affinity metrics. The challenge, of course, is that his model, and when that's where the weighting comes in, relies primarily on Instagram and Facebook. And in my view, there are dynamics on Twitter and TikTok that are very significant, which it doesn't incorporate. Right. So what we'll do then is adjust the weighting there. So when you do all of those things, you come to the conclusion that actually, in terms of raw numbers, we have similar number of polls saying one or the other. So you have splits. That doesn't end it though, because as I've said, we weight them based on different factors. So when we do that, we're able to then come to a final conclusion based on all the polls and the models that we've seen and give us a point estimate. This is just purely data.
Right.
So there is we don't have any investment in the outcome. We're just saying these are things that we need to continue to enrich in this country. And for that reason, we will tell you how that pans out in time.
Right. Well, don't tell us yet. We'll wrap up with that. Let's touch on this thing about the voter turnout, because I'm starting to see this as a significant thing. The EC is reporting as at 2 p.m. 50%, right? Now that leaves 3 hours of polling to go, and they say, of voting to go, and they say 50%. Are we looking at a turnout that is closer to what we tend to see, the above 70s, or not?
So when we did our morning scans, we were predicting 65 to 70%. After our afternoon scans, we are predicting 62 to 69% range, which means that given what we've seen so far, perhaps the lower bound is more likely, something between 62 and 66 or thereabout. Okay.
That would be low.
Yeah. So what happens is that in Ghana, we have a very distinct pattern. Whenever turnout is low, the incumbent government is often set to lose. Except in 92, when the elections were so
kicked
new,
off.
people were worried about security, so many people didn't bother to go and queue up and vote. So if you discard 92 and you use the rest of the polling periods that we've had, it's a very consistent and a very distinct pattern. The incumbent often loses when the turnout is low. There are many possible explanations. One of them is that in Ghana, because of the extreme degree of polarization, people are very settled in their ways, and when they are disappointed in their party, they don't switch, or not enough of them switch. So you have swing voters that are too small in number to switch. So typically the core base of the party, enough of them sit home, and that is the real driver as opposed to swing voter behavior alone accounting for the difference. So if you take that into account, then that will explain why in Ghana, low turnouts don't favor the incumbent.
Right.
And we saw that in, for instance, well, there are two other points, which is that it's not the case that urban centers are where you have low turnout generally. That is not what the data shows. So, for instance, in 2020, 2016, and 2020, if you take an average, Afram Plains was way below Bantama in terms of turnout, even though it's a rural area. So there is no dynamic there around. Maybe in the towns, people are busy and they don't go and vote. It's not true. Other factors that, like whether or not equipment and things like that have been much better in terms of smooth operation, etc., have also been factored into. And when you account for all of those, you still come to the conclusion that this election is seeing low turnout, and low turnouts don't often serve the interest of the incumbent. Is there a way in which potentially low turnouts will damage the interest of the opposition party? Yes, if the low turnout is much worse in their strongholds, as an example, if swing voters are the ones that have decided not to go and vote, because normally when there's a switch from government, swing voters move very significantly.
That's right.
So if it turns out that they are so disappointed in the alternative that they decide they are just going to set it out, that will affect the opposition. But on the whole, the historic pattern is that very likely you will see the incumbent suffer if there's a low turnout.
Right. Okay, Bright, this is the moment. Nobody crunches numbers like you do. We've talked about voter turnout. We've talked about even things like incidents of violence, pockets of violence. We've talked about the campaign strategies of each of these leading parties. We've talked about all the factors, the polls. Put it together for us. Who does the data say will win this election?
Okay, so this is not a methodological seminar, so I'm not going to go and, but I can try and simplify that by saying that the NPP is the slightly larger party. The NDC is the slightly larger, a smaller party, generally. Secondly, the NPP, because often it has a bigger base, has also tended to do well historically with middle-class swing voters. That sets the NPP up for two problems. One is that the expectations coming to office is often massive, and you saw that in 2000. You also saw that in 2016. When the NPP is coming into government, they get this massive upsurge of enthusiasm, partly because, as I've said, the middle-class swing voters who kind of think that the transformation is on the way tend to favor them, and they have a slightly bigger base since 2000. Okay. That also means that something else happens with NDC in power, NPP in power. Since 2000, the NPP, whenever they are in power, they lose votes during their incumbency. Now, when they lose votes during their incumbency, so you saw that happen very clearly from 2004 to 2008.
That's right.
And then from 2016 to 2020. The NDC, historically, perhaps because of lower expectations for the other reasons, basically the other set of the counter to those reasons, it typically increased votes during their incumbency. So you saw that when they did 2008 to 2012. And we've seen also that, generally the level of, shall I say, agitation in civil society and the rest tend to favor the NPP more than it favors the NDC.
Right.
All those reasons mean, therefore, that the current margin they have, the 500,000 votes, which is their envelope, will have to decline further if we follow historical patterns. Now, if you use all the polls and you try and do the weightings and all of those things to try and interpret that, the number that spits out is 50.873 or something like that in favor of the NDC. But it's a range, and this is just a point estimate. Think of it as statistically useless, but it's just, that range between 50.5 to 52 point something percent appears to be what the NDC is on course to win if these data models and everything that I've said to you holds water.
Right.
Human beings are not machines. They're not robots. They don't respond to data seamlessly.
Indeed.
So we are just pouring that out.
Yeah.
And as I've tried to explain, this is not a poll. There's a model that tries to interpret the different polls, the different data points, and then see what is the likely outcome if those data points themselves are accurate.
Yeah.
It could well be that garbage in, garbage out, but for now, it's pointing to a potential NDC victory more than an NPP victory.
I cannot wait to find out whether you're right or wrong.
And I'll be here tomorrow to eat humble pie if I'm wrong.
Or to be hoisted on the shoulders of those who hoped you would be right. Right. It's always a pleasure. Thank you so much for making the time to be with us this afternoon. MFA, well, you heard it here.
Yes.
Over to you now.
We're waiting for that. And that's how we wrap up election afternoon. And we've been talking about the issues about turnout. And we've been talking about it. And this is what the smart wall is telling us for the region, at least. This is for Greater Accra region. That's the turnout. Let's take a look at the national statistics. And then we can wrap up on this when it comes to the trend in terms of what exactly it came out really out. I'll just come briefly on that and then we can wrap up. But really, at this point, I think that we need to go. We are really out of time because it's time for the close of polls, because we saw the Greater Accra region, at least in terms of the voter turnout, 75.9%. We're looking at the national, which also was just around that. There were concerns that have been raised about the low voter turnout when it comes to this particular election. But it remains to be seen. We'll hear from the Electoral Commission what exactly it looks like. Dr. Norman, we'll have to wrap up. Thank you so much for spending your afternoon with us here on the election afternoon. And that's it. The team are coming up next. Evan Spencer and the team will join us shortly. Close of polls. Please do stay with us. This is your election headquarters.